Hey guys, Jesse here. Today I wanted to share one of my favorite ways to set up a content calendar in Asana that has multiple functional teams that are all working together on the same content. So, content calendar, again, as this example, this could be used for many different kinds of projects. But one of the problems that I see when you have multiple teams that are splitting up the work is visibility, right? Let's say in the content calendar example, you have a writing team that is developing the content, and then you have a design team that's creating the graphics for the content. Now, everything in here I know will be touched by the writing team, but not necessarily everything will need graphics. So, for example, let's say a blog post always needs a header graphic, but a magazine article, because maybe that's going to an external magazine, they're going to be handling the graphics, so nothing is needed on the design side. If you have a full design team that is then managing all of the graphics for all the content that's going out, it can be really hard for them to see what kind of work is on everyone's plates. Of course, when you have just one designer, it can be assigned to, that individual, and it shows very clearly in my tasks what is coming up. But when you have multiple people who are sharing that workload, who are doing the same function and just splitting up the workload, it's hard to see what's going on. And so that is what I want to show you today, is a way to set that up so that you have a separate project that just has those design tasks. Now, let me just pause really quick here and say, you may be doing something similar already where, like, of course, you already have your design tasks handled in a different project. But where that gets complicated is then those design tasks are not really housed in the content calendar. It's really hard to see what's going on between those two. If whoever is managing the content calendar is then having to look in two places. So this is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to set that up so that you don't have things living in multiple places. So let's get into it. Right now we have a content calendar. I just, very basic, built this out just with the auto setup. We got to do, in progress, complete, Kanban view. I love a Kanban view for content. Of course, the list view also has just a vertical view of the same stuff. But right in here, let's say blog post A. Right now we can see it lives in the content calendar and it has a to-do. We'll go ahead and add a due date. Let's say this is due in a week. And we have some subtasks. I already added these in here. Let's say there are 3 things we need to do for every blog post. We need to write the post, we need to create a graphic for the post, and then we need to schedule the post. We can say, okay, the writing of the blog post and the scheduling, maybe within WordPress, those are content tasks. Someone on the content team is going to manage those. But creating the graphic, that is a design task. And that's going to be handled by, let's say, this other functional team. What we can do is go into that subtask. And because I've already created another project over here called Design View, we can assign this subtask to that view. Or not assign, but we can have it show up in that view. So we're going to add it to the project Design View. And I've already added a few sections to Design View of blog graphics and social graphics. We'll say that this is a blog graphic because it's a blog post. And now when we go over to Design View, I got some other old ones here. You can see it right here. Graphic for blog post. And this is not a separate task. This is already the same subtask. It's tied to that original parent task, blog post A. But what is nice about this is that as a designer, you can see exactly what is on your plate coming up here. So let's go back to the content calendar too. Where this gets really powerful is when we add in dependencies. So dependencies, you may already be familiar, but it's essentially saying that we can't do this task or subtask until something else is completed. So this task of schedule blog post A, well, we can't schedule it until we have the graphic for it. So I'm going to say it's blocked by graphic for blog post A. And then we can go back to that other subtask. So first you see it has a little blocked sign. We'll go to the graphic and we'll say that you can't create the graphic. We're going to say blocked by, it's not blocking. It's blocking that one, but it's blocked by write blog post A. So then we have a nice little dependency tree. Once write blog post A is completed, then this will become available. This will become unblocked and ready to write. So what that means is that from the design view, it becomes very easy to see, okay, here's what's available to me, and here is what is coming up that is not available yet. Now, a couple things to note. So first of all, as you can see, if you have a parent task, let's say blog post A, and you have subtasks that are assigned to or are listed under different projects. So again, the graphic for blog post A is listed under design view. If I delete this parent task, it will not delete this subtask. So that is actually what you see in the design view is previous ones that I had created and I had deleted the parent task. Well, these subtasks still exist. So that's just something to be super aware of. I feel like in general, once you get into the swing of things and you have good processes across the board in your content production, this won't really be a problem, but it is something to be aware of so that you don't have little orphaned tasks that are just floating around, because then it just becomes its own task, not tied to anything. The other thing, and this is just a general content calendar recommendation. So in our content calendar, we assign this for September 4th. Any item that is assigned to a project, I keep saying assigned, I hope that makes sense. Any item that is listed under a project and has a due date will show up in that calendar. So right now we have blog post A set for September 4th. I like doing this as the due date so that it's really clear. We can use this as a functional content calendar and say, oh yeah, on this day, this item is going out. And then we can use these subtasks to set kind of work backwards from there. So let's say, okay, if it needs to go out on the 4th, we need to schedule it on the 3rd. The graphic, that should be done by the 2nd. And writing the post, we can schedule a few days before that, by the end of this week. So these are the due dates for each of these. We would assign these to individuals, and then they would have their little subtask and their due date. What you don't want to do is to assign all of the content tasks to the content calendar. So remember, within the design task, we assigned it to design view. Right here, this is a content subtask. We do not want to go in and add it to the content calendar project, because what that will do is it will make it show up on this content calendar. And that, of course, is fine if you have a very light content calendar. Maybe it's helpful to see how all of those tasks line up. But in general, if you're at the point where you're using, if you have a lot of people working on content, this calendar is going to be pretty full. So we don't want all of those subtasks showing up. So instead, we can just keep those unassigned to any specific project. They'll still show up just fine as subtasks within our parent task. And then anything that we want to create a separate view for, you create a separate project and assign those subtasks to that project. So you could also build this out. Like, you don't have to limit it to design. If you had a developer team who's working on things, anyone else that is a functional team, it would be helpful to have that kind of team view of all the work that team is doing. This is one way to structure it. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions.